The room was silent, yet the air felt electric. Pam Bondi stood before Congress, her once unshakable confidence trembling under the weight of the nation's gaze. Her voice faltered, breaking in a moment that revealed more than any speech could. Hide! This was no ordinary hearing. It was a reckoning. For years she had maneuvered in the shadows, bending narratives, shaping outcomes, believing herself untouchable. But in this instant, the cracks showed and the facade began to crumble. Millions watched, stunned, and yet, what the cameras didn't show was the shocking truth behind her collapse. The halls of Congress have always been more than marble floors and gilded ceilings. They are a stage where reputations rise and crumble, where power is flaunted and stripped. Bare under unrelenting lights. On this stage, Pam Bondi did not arrive as a victim. She entered with the poise of someone who believed she had mastered the script. Her smile was measured, her words carefully sharpened, her presence radiating a confidence that dared anyone to challenge her. To the casual eye, it looked like control. To those who had watched her career, it was familiar theater, her gift for bending truth into performance. The hearing was supposed to be just another chapter in her playbook, but the atmosphere was different this time, charged, volatile. The audience, both inside the chamber and across the nation, waited for more than answers. They were waiting for a reckoning, and she didn't see it coming. Pam Bondi's story was never about quiet service. It was about spectacle, about turning politics into a performance where she always held center stage. As Florida's Attorney General, she cultivated the image of a crusader, wielding her legal authority like a weapon and her media savvy like armor. Cameras loved her, headlines followed her, and for years she seemed untouchable. Critics pointed to conflicts of interest, to deals that benefited the powerful, to decisions that seemed less about justice and more about loyalty. But Bondi never flinched. She knew how to twist the rules, how to pivot blame, how to transform scrutiny into sympathy. In a world where perception often outweighed truth, she was a master illusionist, always one step ahead. She didn't just survive controversy, she thrived on it, using each scandal as another opportunity to polish her brand. But illusions can only last so long. Behind the rehearsed smiles and rehearsed defenses, pressure was mounting. The spotlight that once protected her was beginning to burn. And in the unforgiving glare of Congress, under questions she could no longer deflect, the audience would finally see what lay beneath. Until one day, the mask began to slip. For every figure who rises on manipulation, there are always those who refuse to bow. In the case of Pam Bondi, they were not the loudest voices in the room, nor the most powerful, but they were relentless. Congressional members, weary of evasion, sharpened their questions with precision, refusing to let her pivot away from the truth. Journalists dissected her every word in real time, exposing contradictions that once slid by unnoticed, and beyond. The chamber, watchdog groups, activists, immigrants, everyday citizens who had long felt the sting of her decisions pushed back with unyielding determination. They demanded answers, not excuses. Each challenge was a reminder that even giants can stumble when faced with courage. The spectacle shifted. What began as Bondi's performance became a trial by fire, her carefully rehearsed defenses unraveling under the persistence of those unwilling to yield. Their stand was not glamorous. It was grinding, patient, and principled, yet it carried a power that even Bondi's polish could not withstand. For every spin she offered, there was someone ready to cut through it with clarity. And as the walls closed in, it became clear. This time, her script was failing, and the stage was no longer hers to command. The hearing unfolded like a duel, each exchange another strike in a war of narratives. Pam Bondi, ever the seasoned performer, leaned into the role of the embattled victim. Her voice softened, her words framed as though she were under siege. Not by accountability, but by unfair persecution. She painted herself as the target of political enemies, hoping sympathy might shield her from scrutiny. But across the table, her opponents refused to be swayed. They pressed harder, drawing out contradictions in her statements, pinning her down with evidence she couldn't easily dismiss. Each evasion only deepened suspicion. Each attempt at theatrics exposed another crack in her credibility. Outside those marble walls, the battle intensified. Headlines erupted within minutes. Clips of Bondi's stumbling answers flooded social media feeds. Commentators pounced on her missteps. Fact-checkers lined up receipts, and watchdogs amplified every contradiction. For her supporters, she was a martyr. For her critics, she was finally being unmasked. The clash wasn't confined to Congress anymore. It was everywhere, on phones, on television, in the conversations of ordinary people who had long felt manipulated by political theater. The lines were drawn, the stage fully lit. Bondi's spin collided with a rising tide of resistance, and the world was watching to see who would emerge unscathed. The tension reached its peak, every second heavier than the last. And then came the moment no one expected. It happened in a flash, so sudden, so raw that the entire room seemed to freeze. Pam Bondi, who had built a career on confidence and control, faltered. Her voice, once sharp and commanding, cracked mid-sentence. Her carefully rehearsed tone slipped into something trembling, vulnerable. The silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. For years, she had mastered the art of composure, never giving opponents the satisfaction of seeing her shaken. But here, before millions of eyes, the mask shattered. Lawmakers leaned forward, sensing the shift. Cameras zoomed closer, capturing every flicker of panic across her face. Online, the moment spread instantly. Viewers stunned at the manipulator, the strategist, the woman who once bent the narrative to her will, suddenly seemed small, fragile, undone. This wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was symbolic. Power doesn't crumble all at once. It cracks piece by piece until the illusion is impossible to maintain. And in that instant, the illusion was gone. For the first time, the manipulator seemed powerless. And as the weight of her unraveling echoed beyond the chamber, one truth became undeniable. The performance was over, and the reckoning had only just begun. The fallout was immediate, a political earthquake reverberating through every screen and every headline. Cable news replayed the clip on a loop, dissecting each crack in her voice, each flicker of emotion. Some anchors framed it as human vulnerability, a rare glimpse of authenticity from a figure long accused of manipulation. Others called it what? It was a calculated act that backfired, a performance meant to sway hearts that instead exposed weakness. On social media, the moment became wildfire. Memes spread within hours. Satire turned her trembling into a punchline, while commentators turned her breakdown into a symbol of political arrogance undone. Hashtags trended, dividing the public. To some, she was a victim unfairly hounded. To others, she was finally facing the accountability she had evaded for years. The chaos was relentless, a swirl of outrage and mockery, of sympathy and scorn. Each narrative clashed, amplifying the spectacle far beyond Congress's walls. And through it all, one fact became undeniable. Bondi no longer controlled the story. The woman who once dictated perception was now trapped inside it, consumed by a storm of her own making. But the storm she unleashed is far from over. Pam Bondi's collapse was more than a headline. It was a mirror reflecting a deeper fracture in American politics. For years, figures like her thrived on spin, on bending narratives, until truth itself seemed negotiable. But when her voice cracked, it wasn't just one person breaking down. It was the facade of control, the illusion that manipulation could always outpace accountability. Across the nation, people recognized the moment for what it symbolized. The unraveling of a style of politics that underestimated the power of persistence, of truth spoken against power. The breakdown marked a shift, however small, in the balance between spectacle and substance. Yet even as the dust settled, one lesson lingered. No mask can hold forever. In the halls of Congress, power is never permanent. It is tested, challenged, stripped bare under the unforgiving light of truth. Pam Bondi's unraveling proved that even the most polished performers cannot outrun accountability forever. When manipulation collides with truth, even the strongest can fall apart. And in that collapse, a message echoes. No one is beyond reach. This was not just her reckoning. It was a reminder of what happens when the people refuse to be silenced. The question now is simple. Who will be next? And will we be ready when it happens again?